Here comes the money, there goes the money. Shane McMahon reportedly gone from WWE per Ringside News, whose credibility I've doubted quite a bit here on the show in the past, will continue to do so, and rightfully so. They don't have a great track history, a great track record, a great history of reporting accurate news. But per Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful, whose credibility I do have a lot of faith in, someone whose sources are almost always accurate, is backing up that story, and the news just broke this morning. So I thought I would mention at the start of hashtag AskGSM here today. We'll get more into that tomorrow on Wrestle Rant Radio with myself and Mr. Marceau. Today, though, we're breaking down all your questions from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube for episode 427 of hashtag AskGSM for Wednesday, February 2nd, 2022. It's Groundhog Day, baby, which means a little bit later on, I'll probably be watching Bill Murray's Groundhog Day. I haven't seen the movie since I watched it for the first time. Don't hate me, but I think I only have seen it once in full, and I had only seen it for the first time 6-7 years ago, and I probably talked about it on this very show. I think we recorded an episode of hashtag that day, because that was back in like the winter of 2015, when literally every fucking Monday when I was up at school, it was snowing every single week, and the worst part about that was that like Raw would be on, we would lose cable. It was like a weekly occurrence for a good week and a half. I did not have class or school on Mondays for like a good month that period. You can go back and listen to all the episodes. I don't know what number that would be. Probably in the, I think it was right before I hit 100, I think. So it was in like, which is going back quite a ways, and this is 7 years ago. But I very vividly remember watching Groundhog Day. That day, I think. It was either that day or around that day because we had no school. My roommate had recommended. I had never seen the movie before. I fucking love Bill Murray. I love Ghostbusters. So how could I not watch it? And I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I'll probably be watching it later. It was around that same time. I think he had showed me Pulp Fiction. We watched The Interview with James Franco. That I don't want to call it a one-hit wonder, but it was like the shit for quite a while because I think it got canned from movie theaters. They put it on Netflix, and a lot of people were talking about it, so we watched that at that point. Django Unchained, fantastic movie, and probably another movie or two that I'm not thinking of right now. But yeah, Groundhog Day was among those films, and that was a fun time. But today is going to be a fun time, too, answering all your questions, like I said, from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you want to send in a question to the show for me to answer right here every single Wednesday, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop your question on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And certainly last but not least, you can drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. One quick note, we do have another interview coming up probably next Monday with the WWE champion himself, Bobby Lashley, who I've already talked to twice before, once back in 2020, once about a year ago, right before he became WWE champion for the first time. We're going to have the WWE champion right back here on the channel, I think, again, next Monday. I'm talking to him tomorrow. We're going to put it up, I think, on Monday here on the channel in audio form, video form, actually, which I was able to do with Kofi and Sheamus last week, which was awesome. And then also in article form over on Bleacher Report. So keep an eye out for those next week, or keep an eye out for that specifically. And then another interview I was working on that probably I actually can't post here to the channel. It's not wrestling related. There's more to come. I think there's another one coming on Friday with Tennille Dashwood of Impact. Talking all about her latest endeavors outside of the ring and stuff like that. I actually spoke to her about a week ago. That'll be up in the next couple days. So those are the two to look forward to. Tennille Dashwood very likely on Friday, and Bobby Lashley, the WWE champion, next Monday. But today, like I said, let's answer all your questions from the aforementioned social media platforms, starting with Noel from Facebook. From Facebook. We got a YouTube question as well. I think I put it at the very bottom. Did I put it at the very bottom? Where did I put the question? I had a question that I don't know where it went. Let's start with Noel, though, from Facebook. Now that Ronda Rousey has won the Royal Rumble, do you see Ronda Rousey challenging Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania 38? I do. I know we got Rousey and Becky on Monday's Raw, with Becky being confronted by Ronda, teasing the possibility of a matchup at Mania. I do think that's the biggest match to do. Obviously, Charlotte is not a no-namer. She's a big star, of course. I just think it makes more sense to do Becky just because, they have the unfinished business, and it just makes more sense. That being said, though, they can always go back to Becky and Ronda at some point down the road. If Ronda is reportedly around for the next year, presumably through WrestleMania 39 next spring, then you can always wait on that and do it next year. I don't know. I just feel like with Becky being champion for every active day she's been on the roster since WrestleMania 35, when she beat Ronda in that triple threat, why wouldn't that be the main event of Mania? I think whoever wins the Rumbles, and this is one of the only pros of Brock becoming the Royal Rumble winner this year, as well as Rousey. Rousey I had less of an issue with than Brock. I think Brock had literally no reason to win the Rumble. But I didn't have a problem with it, if only because the Rumble winner should main event Mania. Now that we have 2 nights of Mania, and we have since 2020, they didn't do it in 2020, but they did it last year. The winners of the Rumbles should main event each night of WrestleMania. One for the women's, one for the men's. If it is the biggest match to do, then you have them headline WrestleMania. Brock and Ronda are 2 of the biggest names this company has. Why wouldn't they headline WrestleMania? I just don't like the idea. I mean, I guess I'm happy that Bianca is very likely getting her match, which we'll talk about later, with Becky at Mania. But I feel like that would be the main event, which is why I probably would have had Bianca win the Royal Rumble. Why did Ronda have to win the Royal Rumble? If they're doing her and Charlotte over on SmackDown, cool. Ronda probably should be the main event, but I feel like Becky losing the belt to Bianca and losing her championship after God knows how many days. I know she wasn't champion for a good year and a half when she left to go have her baby. But beyond that, though, every active day she's been on the roster, she's been a champion. That's almost exactly 3 years come WrestleMania 38 in April. I feel like that should be the main event. So I'm still not 100% sold that it will be Ronda and Charlotte. I feel like it will be, though. Ronda said she's giving her, announcement this Friday on SmackDown. They're dragging it out a little bit longer than the Brock announcement. Brock just kind of nonchalantly said, yeah, I'm facing Roman at WrestleMania, which we all kind of figured. That didn't really bother me. There was no fanfare surrounding that announcement because it was very obvious from the get-go, from the moment, even before he walked out there and won the whole fucking Rumble. I figured he would win the whole thing. I mean, weeks ago, and I'm not the only one. That was the most predictable outcome for that matchup, and they didn't steer away from the obvious path they were going in. Brock already mentioned he's facing Roman at Mania. Maybe they didn't want Ronda to choose that same night, but it's like, I just feel like if she was going for Becky, then she would have said so. And if she chooses Becky, and then it's like Becky's got Lita to look forward to at Elimination Chamber. I don't know. I feel like would they really get 2 chambers to Raw is the question. Are they going to even do 2 chambers? They didn't mention a women's chamber. I don't think they did one last year. They did one 2 years ago with the winner facing Becky at Mania that was won by Shayna. I would do that same match again and have Bianca win it. But again, Raw already has the WWE Championship chamber. Do they give the Raw brand another chamber, albeit for the women? I mean, maybe. I wouldn't mind seeing that just because Bianca should win and then go on to face Becky if Becky's not facing Ronda. So it's still all up in the air right now. I do like the fact that it's not predictable, like the Universal Championship picture right now. The WWE Championship picture, who the fuck knows what's going on right now? It was reported the other day from WrestleVotes. The WWE even has no idea what's going on with the WWE Championship match at Mania. But to answer your question, long story short, I do think we are getting Ronda and Charlotte. We'll find out Friday. I would be surprised. Maybe not surprised, but I don't know. I mean, I guess if you don't do Ronda and Charlotte, is it Sasha and Charlotte? And if so, why the fuck would they book Sasha to look like a loser in the Rumble? Not everyone's the biggest Sasha fan. I know Alexis isn't. I like Sasha a lot too, but I don't know. I don't really know what more you do with Sasha or what kind of match you give her at Mania if she's not facing Charlotte for the championship, which they planted the seeds for a few months ago. So we'll get back to Sasha in a few moments because someone else asked about her as well. Second question here. Will AJ Styles versus Edge finally happen at WrestleMania? Will it? I don't know. I don't know. Anything on the Raw brand beyond what Brock is doing, I have no fucking clue what they're going for. It sounds like plans have changed a lot. The only match I can really see happening for sure is Randy versus Riddle, and even that I'm not confident that we're getting. I'm not 100% confident we're getting that matchup. It sounds like WWE is really happy with the success of RK Bro. I hate to break it to you guys, but we got to get the end of the team at some point. I love RK Bro. I think the stuff they've been doing with Alpha Academy recently has been great. The matches have been great. The segments have been very entertaining. Far more entertaining than they have any right to be. But at a certain point, they got to leave the tag team division. They've been great together. They had a great run as Raw Tag Team Champions. But at the same time, it's like, we need more single stars on this show. I mean, granted, we have AJ, we have Balor, they're not doing jack shit with either one of those guys. But I don't know, I just feel like Orton and Riddle is the direction to go in. It just makes sense. And I would be perfectly fine with that match happening at Mania. Now, I know it was reported that maybe they were looking to put in the championship on Riddle and having it be for the WWE Championship. Hey, that could be the direction they go in. That could very well be the match at Mania for the WWE Championship. Riddle is in the Elimination Chamber. Does Orton find... I mean, he wasn't on Raw this week for some reason, but does he find his way into the chamber as well? Take the spot of like an Austin Theory or someone like that? Maybe. I don't think so. The problem that I stated on Twitter on Monday with them doing that for the championship is that Orton and Riddle writes itself as far as why the match would happen. What doesn't make sense is why it would be for the championship. Now, I know they pulled that same shit with Orton and Wyatt 5 years ago by having Wyatt win the championship right before Mania, and then Orton took it from him. The WWE Championship has been passed around so fucking frequently lately. I mean, Brock beat Big E for it at day one. Bobby beat Brock for it at the Rumble. Bobby's probably not retaining inside the chamber, and if he does, what was the fucking point of the chamber? And then if Bobby loses at a chamber, I assume whoever becomes champion will probably lose at a WrestleMania. That's 4 title changes in the span of like 2 or 3 months. That's ridiculous over the course of 2 or 3 pay-per-views. Or 3 or 4 pay-per-views, rather. I just don't like that. I don't like that, so I don't know what you do. But to go back to your question, which, again, I tend to talk a lot about the questions and kind of go off track and whatnot. Back to AJ and Edge. I hope this is the year that we get AJ and Edge at Mania, because I don't know what else you do with either guy if not. AJ could either win the championship inside the chamber or look strong in defeat and get another opportunity at Mania and then beat Bobby for it there. I would be okay with that. AJ and Bobby's a fresh match. We've only ever seen them interact, I think, in triple threats and multi-mans. I don't think we've ever gotten in TNA, in WWE, or anywhere else, because AJ had just left TNA by the time that Bobby came back in 2014. And in the short period, they were both there in like 09, early 2010, like very early 2010 is when Bobby left. I don't think we ever got a one-on-one match between the two. So I know they're both like well over 40 at this point, but who fucking cares? Like I mean, so are AJ and Edge. I don't know. I think it'd be a great match, and AJ becoming champion again at Mania would be cool. He's never won the championship at Mania. He's defended the championship at Mania and won and retained, but he hasn't actually won the championship at Mania. So that would be cool. If not that, though, AJ and Edge makes the most sense. It's an attraction match. Edge has nothing going on right now. I just wrote about this today for Bleacher Report. Why Edge isn't in the Elimination Chamber competing for the championship after he already has unfinished business with a world championship from last year. He got screwed out of the Universal Championship by Rollins and Money in the Bank. He never got his one-on-one match at WrestleMania, turned into a triple threat. He got the singles match of Money in the Bank, but like I said, he was screwed out of the opportunity by Seth Rollins. After beating Seth at SummerSlam, he said on SmackDown, "I'm setting my sights back on the World Championship." And then literally a week fucking later, he came out on SmackDown and resumed his rivalry with Seth Rollins. So I don't know if the idea was always to continue that feud. I'm not exactly sure. But they never went back to that. Edge went to Raw. He was looking for new opportunities and new opponents. And Miz came out, and we've been getting that feud ever since. And I assume that feud is over, as it should be. Edge beat him at day one. Edge and Beth won the mixed tag team match at the Rumble. It's time to move on. Edge, does he have to be in the world champ? I mean, honestly, I think AJ and Edge, how you would get there, I don't know, because they've really had very little interaction in WWE since Edge has come back. I think the only interaction they've had has been in the first 2 Rumble matches they were both in, 2020, 2021. I think that's it. AJ's kind of a babyface now. It's not the same with him being a babyface as it would have been when he was a heel. Maybe you could turn Edge heel, but he's just too damn popular right now, so I don't know. That's the best idea. So I don't know. I just feel like that would be the biggest match you can do for the WWE Championship at Mania. You can put the belt on AJ. Edge goes for one more run at Mania. Maybe he loses. Maybe he wins. Again, I don't know what that means for Bobby. I just feel like Bobby would be a placeholder champion, and I don't like that. But even if it's enough for a championship, I think AJ and Edge should be the Mania match. We're running out of opportunities for when we can get that match. Maybe it's at SummerSlam, like we got with Seth and Edge at SummerSlam last year. But Edge, if he does indeed have a 3-year deal with WWE, it's going to be up next year. He could always extend it or whatever, or re-sign. I would do that match on the sooner side in case we don't get it down the road. They're on the same show now. It's a match they both want. Make it happen, WWE. So the YouTube question I forgot to mention earlier was from Joe M. I forgot to include this in the document. But his question was, who has more upside in WWE, Duke Hudson or Von Wagner? I think Hudson's better in every aspect, but I get the feeling that they hold Wagner in a higher regard. So you're asking me who has more upside. I don't think the question wasn't who do I see going further in WWE? Who do I see them getting behind and putting the championships on? And who has more of a chance of success in WWE? Probably Von Wagner, because they have a fucking hard-on for Von Wagner. The guy's awful. The Robert Stone connection will not save him. If anything, it might just kill his career even further. Listen, I like Robert Stone a lot. I've met the guy a ton. I was there for one of his first indie shows a decade ago. He was one of the first matches I had ever seen in person at a wrestling show. Was at a Northeast Wrestling show back in 2009. It was a Robert Stone match. The guy's entertaining. I liked his work in TNA. The problem is that it's anyone he has been associated with so far in NXT, Chelsea Green, Mercedes Martinez, Jessie Kamea, Taya Valkyrie, or Frankie Monet, whatever, have all been fired. The only person who hasn't been was Aaliyah, and Aaliyah dumped him and went to SmackDown, and she's been doing a lot better than any of those other women so far. I think Aaliyah has won more matches on SmackDown than any of those other women did on main roster TV, and that's fucking unfortunate, specifically in the cases of Frankie Monet and Taya Valkyrie. But anyway, I'm sorry, Frankie Monet and Mercedes Martinez. Frankie Monet is Taya Valkyrie, obviously. Von Wagner is awful. I actually like Duke Hudson. I am in the minority who is a Duke Hudson fan. The poker shit was awful, but I wasn't like blown away by Brendan Vink when he showed up on WWE TV about a year, 2 years ago at this point, alongside Shane Thorne. The team was fine. They were just very generic. They were not main roster ready. They were used on Raw quite a bit at that point before being bumped back down to NXT, or at least Brendan was. Shane was used in Retribution before getting fired a couple of months ago. But yeah, with Duke Hudson, though, I think he's just got the raw talent as far as being good in the ring. He does come across as generic. I love the entrance. He just gives me a lot of Wade Barrett vibes. And Barrett has made those comparisons as well to like the side slam that he does. It comes across like the Winds of Change, side slam that Barrett used to do, the spinning side slam. I don't think he's doing the... What was it called? The Barrett Barrage, that finisher that he used to do, the Wasteland. I don't know if I forgot what he called it at the end of his career. But yeah, I like Hudson. I think Hudson has more upside. Will he eventually be a WWE or Universal Champion? Probably not. I don't see him getting to that level. The shaved head and becoming more aggressive could increase his chances of being successful. I do think they see more in Von Wagner, though. He popped up randomly in that SmackDown segment a few months ago, and we never saw him again since. I feared that he'd be added to Team SmackDown, and thankfully that was not the case. But I mean, they had this guy end Kyle O'Reilly's NXT career. They clearly give no fucks about Kyle O'Reilly or how valuable that win was for him, because Von Wagner went on to do absolutely nothing. Lost to who? Idris Inofi, who at that point was an enhancement talent on the show. There was never any follow-up, and that was it. And now he's feuding with fucking Andre Chase, which is just awful. So I like Hudson. I think he could go further if they actually utilize the guy. I think it's more likely they see a lot more in Von Wagner, though, which is unfortunate. At Kyle Rochelle 19 from Twitter. Now that Ronda Rousey is back, if it's going to be Becky Lynch versus Bianca and Charlotte Flair versus Ronda, how does Sasha Banks get a big-time match at WrestleMania? It's wrong not having Sasha in a big match at WrestleMania. Of those four, I mean, honestly, to me, if I was to sacrifice one woman, whether it be Sasha or Bianca. So here's the thing. Ronda coming back kind of fucked some things up for the women, because I really did see Bianca win. I would love to know what their original plan was for the Rumble before they found out Ronda was coming back. That Ronda report came out, not this Monday, obviously, the Rumble was on Saturday, but last Monday. So if that only kind of came together in the last few weeks, they probably never even had a fucking plan. But I would love to know what they were thinking going into WrestleMania before Ronda came back. Probably Becky and Bianca, based on their interaction on one of the first Raws of the year. And they still have to blow that off at some point. It's not going to be an Elimination Chamber. We're getting Becky and Lita on that show instead. It should be Bianca and Becky at WrestleMania. And that's one of the upsides to Ronda choosing Charlotte, although I think Ronda and Becky's a bigger match, and that should be the main event. At least Bianca gets her WrestleMania match and moment, hopefully with Becky, by beating her for the Raw Women's Championship. That has got to be how this thing plays out. She never got her win over Becky last year. That's got to be how this plays out, even if it's not the main event. Whatever. But what does that mean for Sasha? Sasha has never won at WrestleMania. She is like 0-5, 0-6, or something like that. I think she's 0-6, right? She lost at 32 in that triple threat. She lost at 33 in that Fatal 4-Way for the Raw Women's Championship. She lost at 34 in that pre-show Battle Royal that meant nothing, but she lost in that. She lost at 35 in the WWE Women's Tag Team title match. She lost at 36 in the multi-women match for the SmackDown Women's Championship, and she lost this past year, or last year rather, to Bianca in the main event of WrestleMania 37 for the SmackDown Women's Championship. So she is 0-6, one of the worst, if not the worst, WrestleMania record of all time. Yet she's had some great WrestleMania matches. That match with Bianca was awesome, and all the other matches were pretty good as well for the most part. That 32 match specifically, although she didn't win, was excellent. Probably the best match in that entire show. Not even probably, it was. But yeah, so I feel bad for Sasha probably not getting her match with Charlotte. Again, they planted the seeds actually during that dumb belt swap segment back in October. But there has been no progression on that front at all since then. So it's not like they were actively building towards it. They've had interaction in some tag team matches and stuff like that. But other than that one interaction on that SmackDown where the title swap happened in early October, they haven't aggressively teased the idea of Sasha and Charlotte for Mania. It's a match we've seen a lot, to be honest with you. So it is a shame that she's probably not going to get that opportunity because of Ronda Rousey. But it's not like it's this first time ever encounter. Sasha needs a win at Mania. Does it have to come at the expense of Charlotte? No. Ronda could... Honestly, I would probably have Ronda beat Charlotte. I would not have Ronda beat Becky. I would have Ronda beat Charlotte because who cares about Charlotte as champion at this point? I mean, she's hardly defended the damn thing. The only person she has defended it against fucking quit the company in Toni Storm. So just put the belt on Ronda. I'm sure it wouldn't hurt at this point. With Sasha, I would still give her a big match at Mania. With 2 nights of Mania, it becomes more possible. You know they're going to have, a tag team title match at Mania. Not that I give a shit, but instead of dragging that out this year, so like last year, we got a number 1 contenders tag team turmoil match with the women on night 1, and then the actual tag team title match on night 2. That just was completely unnecessary. Just put the tag team title match on one of the 2 nights, and then occupy that other spot with a meaningful women's championship match. So like in 2020, we got 4 women's matches, if I'm not mistaken. We had the Raw Women's Championship match, the SmackDown Women's Championship match, the Tag Team title match, and the NXT Women's Championship match. So this year, there is no NXT Women's Championship match. Don't do a dumb tag team turmoil matchup. Just do Sasha versus Lita instead. Now, how much would a win for Sasha even really mean after Lita likely loses to Lynch at Elimination Chamber? Probably not a lot, but it would give her a win. It would probably be a good match. Lita's still a big name. I would love if they used her through WrestleMania. Does Bayley come back before Mania and they do that match? I mean, if there's nothing on the line, why would they want to face each other from a storyline standpoint? I mean, I think it'd be cool to finally get Bayley and Sasha at WrestleMania. They've always wanted that WrestleMania match. Just from a storyline standpoint, I'm not really sure why that would be. So, I mean, I still assume, I never really figured Bayley would be back at the Rumble. I've always assumed she would be back after WrestleMania, and one of the post-WrestleMania Raws or SmackDowns, probably SmackDown. I mean, maybe Raw at this point, if Ronda's going to SmackDown, who knows? But anyway, so yeah, I don't know. I think Lita she keeps coming back to mind as someone that she could face. It would have been Toni Storm had they actually bothered to fucking build the woman up and had she not left, which I don't blame her for. Toni and Sasha would have been a good match. I don't know if they would have given that opportunity to Toni, but it's worth wondering about. Shotzi, we've already seen it, and they've done absolutely nothing with Shotzi at this point, so no. Shayna Baszler just means nothing at this point, so again, probably not. I mean, they could. They had a good match on SmackDown about a month or 2 ago, but Sasha beat her clean, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, maybe they can go back to it, but Shayna just means nothing right now. Honestly, I think it's more likely the other Mania match for the women is Sonya versus Naomi. I know we just got it on... I mean, this is the part that doesn't make any sense to me. They had a very good match on SmackDown a week or 2 ago, or last Friday, rather. Naomi won fucking clean. So, why would you even bother continuing the feud? I mean, I always thought it was kind of a stretch that they would even wait till Mania anyway. I figured they would because they've been teasing it for so fucking long. But I thought it would be a stretch to even wait till then because it's not for another 2 months. And they've done everything under the sun to further that feud since the fall or the summer or whenever it started. So, I don't know. It's just, I don't know what you do with Sasha. If it's not a match with Lita, and I'm not even really sure why. Like, would Lita come to SmackDown after losing to Becky and be like, hey, I want to face you now. I want to face all the 4 horsewomen after already getting tossed from the Rumble by Charlotte Flair? I mean, I guess maybe, but it's like Charlotte or Sasha's a babyface for now. I don't know. Does she form a tag team with, like, She got tossed from the Rumble by Queen Zelina. Is their idea bringing back Bayley to team with Sasha again? I mean, again, we've already fucking seen this. They were the tag team champions in 2019. They were the tag team champions in 2020. I mean, are we really going to go back to Sasha and Bayley? I mean, because they just have no other teams? And do them against Queen Zelina and Carmella? I guess, but that's kind of a... Maybe it would obviously finally give Sasha a win at WrestleMania. There's no doubt about that. There's no way Carmella and Queen Zelina would beat fucking Sasha Banks and Bayley at WrestleMania. But I just feel like you could do so much more with Sasha. So it is a tough position to be in because I feel like they could be doing more with her. But Ronda Rousey coming back really kind of fucked up those plans. So we'll see how it plays out. At Iwagu91, do you think Hangman Adam Page will defend the AEW World title against this fellow Adam at Revolution? I do. I think they did the dumb Lights Out match, which I didn't like, except for the Danhausen cameo last week at Beach Break. I think they did that because they wanted to give Orange his big win over Adam Cole. I almost said Adam Page. The two Adams. I figured they wanted to give him his win over Cole, but not affect Cole's standings in the rankings. I think it's silly that Adam Cole would fucking lose to Orange Cassidy and then go on to challenge for the World Championship because he lost clean. I just think that's completely ridiculous. I mean, Orange Cassidy has beaten Chris Jericho twice in a fucking Mimosa Mayhem match. I mean, the guy's a goof. So, I don't know. Yeah, they probably will do the match of Revolution, and I think they should. I just wouldn't have done that to Cole last week because they are doing the Page and Archer match next week on Dynamite. Thank God. I like Archer. The feud's been fine. It is not a pay-per-view worthy match. That is a total filler feud for Page before he gets to Revolution. So I'm glad they're doing that. But yeah, I think it's going to be Cole and Page at Revolution. Page probably wins as he should. And I like Cole a lot, but I don't think he should win the championship from Page. I would save that for MJF personally. Cole can always win it at some point down the road. And they already teased it a couple of months ago. And Page has the connection with the Bucks and the Elite and Red Dragon and whatever. So it would be an interesting story to tell. Maybe that leads to the return of Kenny Omega. Maybe Kenny cost Adam Page the title or Cole the title. And he kind of reunites with Page a little bit. Who knows? I mean, there's an interesting story worth telling there. And I think that is worthy of main eventing Revolution. So I do think that's the direction they're going in. I know they're doing Punk and MJF tonight. I still say that feud goes on till WrestleMania. What the fuck am I talking about? I'm looking at another question. We talked so much about WrestleMania. I'm thinking Punk and MJF are going to be at WrestleMania, the buy one get one free, or whatever they called it on Dynamite a couple of weeks ago. No, Revolution. I still say that feud runs through Revolution, and whether it's a non-finish tonight or an angle or whatever the fuck they do, they blow it off at Revolution. MJF then goes on to win the World Championship from Page at Double or Nothing in May. That's what I would do. So Adam Cole getting an opportunity in the meantime, losing to Page at Revolution, to me, makes perfect sense. His second question, your thoughts on one of the original plans of the Royal Rumble being that Riddle was considered to win the Men's Rumble. Like I said earlier, I don't know if I mentioned this, but it did come out that there were plans that Riddle was considered to win the Rumble, and then it also came out that those reports weren't true. So I don't know what to believe. There's a lot of bullshit coming out of the pay-per-view. That Men's Rumble fucking sucked. I mean, it got changed a lot. Shane McMahon reportedly had a lot of influence. Reportedly, he's not even there anymore, like I said earlier. Who the fuck even knows at this point? Not that I wouldn't have seen Riddle winning. Like I said, I just think it would be incredibly random and way too reminiscent of Orton and Wyatt from 5 years ago for Riddle to randomly win the Rumble. And I would have been happy with... There's a lot of people who don't like Riddle. I would have been happy with that just because it wasn't Brock Lesnar. And I wouldn't say that about just about anyone, but Riddle is at least a newer guy and whatever. Orton would then have to win the WWE Championship at Chamber, probably in the spot that Riddle currently has, and they would do that match at Mania. The problem with that, though, is that they have teased no tension lately. I know they dropped the Raw Tag Team titles, but Riddle has also been a complete fucking goofball on Raw for weeks now, for months. For the entire RKO Bro storyline, he has been a complete goof. And I think he plays the role very well. He can be serious. He showed that in the match with Otis on Monday. I just feel like with him, they got to build him back up to being a serious threat like he was in NXT for anyone to take him seriously as a WWE champion. Would that progression, would that development with his character come from the Rumble through Mania? Maybe even by having Orton turn on him, maybe that kind of causes a gear to be shifted in him, turn on the switch a little bit, so to speak, and then he goes full-on serious and he becomes more of a threat and whatever. maybe, I don't know. I just feel like their storyline, again, I want to see Orton versus Riddle at Mania. I'm not saying don't break up RK Bro. They've been amazing. I would have said that 6 months ago, and I did say that 6 months ago. I would not break them up now, or I wouldn't not break them up now because there's really nothing left for them to do as a tag team. But I just don't really feel like that storyline currently is befitting of a world championship. A lot like Orton and Wyatt 5 years ago was not befitting of a fucking world title. That should absolutely, I mean, that match was going to suck either way. But that match at WrestleMania 33 was an absolute waste of the WWE Championship. I mean, honestly, even AJ and Shane McMahon, I don't give a shit about Shane at this point. At that point, I didn't love the idea of the match. Ended up being a great match, and I think AJ holding on to the WWE Championship through Mania or getting the belt back after losing it to Cena and then defending against Shane at Mania would have at least been better than Orton versus Wyatt. I mean, that was a complete placeholder program before they got the belt on Jinder anyway in the spring, like a month or two later, so I don't know, man. I don't even know where I was going with that. But yeah, Riddle and Orton, I wouldn't complain. It's got a story. To me, it's just not befitting of a world championship currently. It's just not. I mean, do you really have Riddle win the Rumble, and then the next night he's doing a fucking scooter race? The scooter race worked because Gable is great, and Riddle can be entertaining sometimes too. But you got to pick one, though. You can't book him to look like a serious threat, only to have him do a scooter race the next day. They're still feuding with Alpha Academy over the tag team titles, so I just wouldn't do it right now. Maybe later on in the year, not now. So I'm not discrediting that report. I'm not saying if it's true or not true that Riddle was considered to win the Rumble, but I'm sure there's a lot of people, or at least a handful of people on that creative team that want to see Riddle and Orton for the championship in Mania. I want to see the match too. It doesn't feel like a world title match. It doesn't. Orton is Randy Orton, I know that, but it's more of an issue with Riddle and how he's been portrayed after this point. It just doesn't feel, it feels like a mid-card match for Mania. It does not feel like a top-tier main event, which it wouldn't be anyway. It would not fucking headline WrestleMania over Ronda or Brock or any of those other people. Who do you think was the wrestler of 2021? I'm sure I answered this a couple of weeks ago, but I know I did actually, because I'm pretty sure it was the headline of one of the videos. To me, it was Roman Reigns. I know, you can say Kenny. I was like, I know when PWI had said, oh, it's Kenny Omega. I was like, how could it be Kenny Omega? It's clearly Roman Reigns. I get the Kenny thing, and I'll just keep this short because I've already talked about this, but Kenny had a lot of great matches last year. He was champion for almost the entire year. Roman was champion for the entire year. The thing why I say Roman, I mean, if you're saying wrestler, like, are you talking matches? Are you talking overall character development? Are we including promos and feuds? I would still say Roman Reigns. I think Roman Reigns cut some killer promos last year, had the best feuds with Bryan, Edge, Brock towards the end there, Cena for a brief bit, some temporary stuff with Rey Mysterio and Cesaro and Balor, among other people, Kevin Owens. The guy had an amazing year. Kenny had, I don't know, I even honestly feel like Roman had more memorable matches, probably because he wrestled more, which is weird because Roman hasn't really wrestled a whole lot except for pay-per-view. AEW doesn't have as many pay-per-views, but like the Pac and Orange Cassidy match, the three-way Double or Nothing was great. It didn't even headline the show. The Revolution match, the Barbed Wire Massacre, whatever the fuck it was, I just wasn't a big fan of it. It was fine. The All Out match with Christian was great. Just was kind of an afterthought in retrospect, so. And I just feel like Roman's promos were better. His feuds were better. He had more memorable matches to me that were just better than some of Kenny's. So that's why I say Roman Reigns. Again, I know Kenny had the whole Impact thing going on. You can't have it both ways. People are like, well, he held 3 titles. No, I mean, yes, technically, but the AAA title, he never fucking defended. He defended it maybe once. So let's stop pretending that was an actual accomplishment by Kenny Omega in 2021. 2, people completely shit on Impact. Oh, no one watches it. No one gives a fuck about Impact. But if Kenny Omega's the Impact World Champion, well, it's got to mean something. Yeah, he made it more meaningful, but it's not like he was defending it weekly. I mean, he had a couple of good defenses. He had a pretty good reign. I enjoyed Omega's reign. But he was only champion for like 4 months. I don't know. It's not like he was the WWE champion. Or he didn't even defend the fucking Impact title on AEW TV up until he lost it anyway to Christian Cage on Rampage. So, I don't know. I don't really buy into that bullshit. So I still think I still say it's Roman Reigns. If you say Kenny Omega, I won't really argue with you, but I still maintain it was Roman Reigns was the wrestler of 2021. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the YouTube Machine and Twitter. Check out his stuff on YouTube. Real Honesty with John Ritland always does awesome work, of course. His first question was, are there any Elimination Chamber matches you initially liked, but watched later and they didn't age well, or vice versa? Good question. I love the O2. I always will love the O2 Elimination Chamber. The first ever is arguably still the best from Survivor Series O2. The O3 one I always thought sucked. I haven't really gone back and watched a lot of the other ones from that time period. I've gone more back and watched like some of the recent ones from the last 10 years. I enjoyed the 2 chamber matches of 2011. The 2012 ones were fine. The 2013 one was fine. 2014, I thought was great. 2014 Elimination Chamber, I hated the outcome of the Orton winning, but it was a great matchup though. The 2015 one was fucking terrible. They were both pretty bad. The tag team one and the Intercontinental Championship one specifically was one of the worst I've ever seen. That was a pretty bad match. The 2017 one was, again, one of the best ones they've ever done for the WWE Championship inside the chamber. That was a great one. I can't really say I've changed my mind on any of them. I haven't gone back and watched any of the 2018 ones or 2019 ones. The 2019 one I remember being very good for the WWE Championship. Some of the women's ones have been solid. I can't say there's no chamber matches that come to mind that my thoughts really ever changed on. I think they've kind of stayed the same. I've always loved the O2. I always thought the O3 one sucked. There were a couple in between, that Triple H one and that John Cena one and whatnot, and those were all pretty good. The 08 ones were pretty good. The 09 ones I thought were pretty good. 2010 I haven't seen a whole lot, but I thought they were solid from what I can remember. So yeah, my thoughts on the chamber matches haven't really changed. They are usually more often than not pretty good though. I will say that. The chamber matches are usually great stuff. I'm not a big fan of it having its own pay-per-view, or at least doing the pay-per-view before Mania. I've never been a big fan of that, because nothing ever fucking happens at the show is the problem. It is a very uneventful show more often than not. I don't know if this year will be any exception. I guess we'll find out, but yeah, my thoughts on each of the chambers have largely stayed the same. I got to go back and watch some of them, because there were some pretty good gems over the years as well. His second question, is AEW going to have to ease back in the stipulation matches on free TV? Just asking because they've at times gone overboard just for the sake of it. Could lead to fans becoming numb towards them. I mean, I'm already at that point. I reached that point fucking years ago, this company. To me, it feels like TNA with every week, Monsters Ball, no disqualification, hardcore, street fight, Falls Count Anywhere. Like, you can call it whatever you want. It's still the same fucking match. Like, I could probably count on 2 hands right now on Rampage and specifically Dynamite in the last month and a half, 2 months, the amount of hardcore matches we have gotten. I mean, it's ridiculous. We had that it was Eddie Kingston and Santana Ortiz versus Garcia in 2.0. That was a hardcore street fight on Dynamite. We had the Lights Out match this past week. Don't we have one this week? We had a ladder match like a fucking week ago on the same Beach Break show. We had the street fight with the women on Rampage, again, which was great, but I just feel like we get these matches all the fucking time. We had one with Britt Baker and Abaddon on the Halloween edition of Rampage or whatever it was. I know the Bucks have been in a bunch. We got at least 2 hardcore matches of Full Gear, at least 2. Yeah, I mean, there's been they do it so often. The street fight on TV with Cody and Andrade, that was an Atlanta street fight or whatever the fuck they called it. So I don't know. I just feel like they do the street fights and the hardcore matches so often, and they're usually very good, but I'm already numb towards them. I see the stipulation and I'm like, why? And you can't always save it for pay-per-view because they only have 4 pay-per-views, but at least space them out a little more. I feel like everyone has a hardcore match or a street fight or whatever. It's the same shit. It's just trash cans and stuff like that. So they got to tone it down in the hardcore wrestling, focus more on the less stipulation shit. WWE does it too. We're getting yet another steel cage match in NXT next week, or a Vengeance Day or whatever, with Pete Dunne and Tony D'Angelo. Didn't we just get a steel cage with Von Wagner and Kyle O'Reilly in NXT like a month or 2 ago? And then we had War Games right before that. And then they did a fucking steel cage, I'm pretty sure, on Raw with someone else. I think it was Kevin Owens and Big E, like that same week. We got another steel cage a couple months before that with Big E and Bobby Lashley. I'm sure we've gotten some on SmackDown at some point. WWE Steel Cage is AEW's hardcore match. And WWE does the hardcore matches too, but AEW, it's like literally one every week. It's complete overkill to me. Complete overkill. The Lights Out match was completely unnecessary. I'm sorry. I mean, The match wasn't great to begin with, but the stipulation was just stupid. I mean, they haven't really feuded over anything, but because Orange Cassidy accidentally put Britt Baker through a fucking table, give me a break. A week earlier? Come on. That's not befitting or worthy or a justified reason to have a lights out match or an unsanctioned match. That's silly. His third question, so that men's rumble was certain dire, wasn't it? Maybe not the worst one ever, but certainly a slog. Yeah, that men's rumble fucking sucked. I mentioned that earlier. We'll talk more about it in depth tomorrow on Wrestle Rant Radio, but holy shit, that match was fucking terrible. It was just boring. I honestly don't know. The next day, we watched, Alexis and I and her brother, we rewatched the 2015 Rumble, and she was asking me, is this really that bad? I'm like, the thing is, to me, the 2015 one is bad, especially once you get towards the end. But the thing is, for me, you have to have been a fan at that point and in 2014 to really, truly understand why those Rumbles were just not good. It's not just the outcome. Like, the outcome of this year's, I didn't really mind. Brock, I kind of figured he was winning. I didn't love it, but I knew it was coming, so it didn't really bother me. The actual structure of the match fucking sucked. The 2015 Rumble had good, but it had a lot of bad, like a lot of I was furious. This year, I just felt nothing. I'm like, there's nothing coming on. There's nothing going on. So, I don't know if it's worse to be bored or to be angry or what, but it just wasn't good at all. That last stretch specifically was just very infuriating. Shane coming out, AJ getting dumped by Madcap Moss, Damian getting tossed like a loser by Omos in a matter of seconds, like once Omos entered the ring anyway. It was just stupid. It was stupid. Yeah, I don't know. I would really, there's been so many Rumbles. I'd really have to go back and rewatch every one, or at least the ones that I know are terrible, to tell you if it's the worst one ever. I still go back to that 99 one when it had all the dumb factions and the stupid, maybe that was the 98 one, but I heard the 98 one was good. The 99 one, it was just, I remember watching it like when Vince won and they had all the fucking Bariquas. Maybe that was 98, but they just had so many bad Attitude Era gimmicks, and the 95 one wasn't much better because, again, a lot of bad gimmicks with pure filler in it. A lot of those 90s Rumbles are just not great, but most of them are better than what we got on Saturday. So maybe not the worst ever, like you said, but certainly in that conversation, it fucking sucked. Last two questions from Misdemeanor 6. Is the hype for Hook after only a handful of squash matches justified, in your opinion, or are the fans just looking back fondly at how damn good his dad was? I don't think Taz really has anything to do with it. People like Taz, but it's not like they're chanting Taz at Hook. Hook is over on his own. I maintain, and I've said this before, I just don't really get the Hook hype. In the ring, the guy's impressive, but AEW has 1,000 people on their roster that are fucking impressive. Maybe it's just the fact that he doesn't really look like much. Like, he doesn't look like most of the other roster. People are just super into his hair for some reason. The guy's got good hair, but it's like, do I need to cheer this guy like he should be the next world champion? I don't know. I don't really get the Hook hype. He never really says much. I think at some point he is going to have to talk, or at least have Taz do the talking for him. All he's done is a couple squash matches, and it's all been kind of the same stuff. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a hater. Maybe I just don't get it. Listen, the guy's over. You fucking run with it, and you push the guy, because the guy's over, and, people like him. So I'm not saying don't push him, because it's not like he's bad. You know what I'm saying? It's not like he's a fucking bad wrestler, and then I'm just like, why are they pushing this guy that's terrible? The kid's good in the ring. He's good, and he's over. Why wouldn't you capitalize on it? Maybe it's me just not really understanding why he's over, because I feel like he started out as one of those internet memes, and people just kind of really bought into it, and because other people like it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like wrestling fans are very like, if this people are getting into that person, then I have to get into it too. It's a very, not a mob mentality, but it's very jumping on the bandwagon just because other people like it. That's me with some stuff too, but at least with Hook, I don't really get it. So the matches have been fine. I really have no desire to see him win like the TNT title, for example. I just don't really care about that at all. But if the kid's over, why wouldn't you capitalize? So, no, I don't really think it has anything to do with his dad. Like I said, I feel like he was just an internet meme among the AEW faithful that turned into a lot more than that once they started putting him in the ring. So, the kid's good. I've seen debuts that were better than his. So, I wouldn't go so far as to say it was the greatest debut of all time and he first stepped in the ring a couple of months ago. That's ridiculous. And they're also overexposing him, too. He's been a Rampage exclusive. He's almost never on Dynamite. And it's just... they're putting him in the ring against losers almost every other week. So, I don't know. I'm just not I don't hate Hook at all. I just don't really get it, personally. Last question from also at Misdemeanor6. Could MJF be AEW's Roddy Piper, as in a big name with no championships? And if not him, who could it be? No. I think MJF is a great talker like Roddy Piper. But if you're saying could MJF be Roddy Piper and that he never has to win a championship but still could be over, I completely disagree with that. I feel like they would be asinine. I feel like it would be incredibly dumb to not put the world championship on MJF at some point. I mean, the guy is absolute money. He's fantastic. He screams world champion. The gimmick screams world champion. Roddy Piper's gimmick, character, whatever, I don't go back. I mean, the guy's amazing, but I don't go back and watch him and think, wow, I mean, his character would have been perfect as world champion. I mean, he would have been a very good world champion because the guy was a good worker and a great talker. But I mean, MJF with the amount of heat that he gets and just for being a piece of shit character and the amount of money, like he's so rich and shit like that. He's better than you and he knows it. That just screams world champion. It just screams like someone you want to see get their ass kicked, a snarmy heel. So I don't know. I think MJF, it would be incredibly stupid to never put the championship on him. And I think he should be the one to beat Adam Page for that championship. And whoever beats MJF for the championship from there is also going to greatly benefit. So no, I think MJF should be champion. And I think he will become probably Double or Nothing is still my projection there. If not MJF, who could be AEW's Roddy Piper? Oh, man. I mean, I think they're Daniel Bryan, maybe? I mean, Daniel Bryan, the thing is that Daniel Bryan, I think, is probably older now than Roddy Piper was when he was competing for the top championship. I'm almost positive he is. Daniel Bryan, it's not like he hasn't accomplished anything. He just never has won a championship in AEW. That's the only thing. I mean, the guy's I guess Roddy Piper was champion elsewhere too, but never on the level of a WWE like Daniel Bryan was. I mean, this guy made him at the Mania and was multi-time WWE world champion. With Bryan in AEW, though, given his current ranks, I feel like he's a guy, him or Punk, where they don't really have to win the championship. I think one of them will. I would say if it's more likely for Punk to win the championship than Bryan. I feel like Bryan's just more content putting people over, being in that conversation, but just putting them over in the end. Bryan feels like a guy that can be in a top spot on the show, but never win the championship, and I would be okay with that. And I know the guy's amazing, and it would be kind of a missed opportunity to not give him a run at some point, either as a face or as a heel. But I could see it happening because he's already kind of had his time. That wasn't the issue with Piper. It's not like he already had his time. It's just that they just never did it for whatever reason. But either him or Punk. Beyond them, as far as like an actual wrestler that hasn't peaked yet or isn't in the twilight of their career currently in the roster, I feel like Darby's got to become champion at some point. Is Jungle Boy going to be AEW World Champion? Maybe. Sammy could be that guy where he kind of floats around the Intercontinental title level, but never actually wins the top title. Out of the active roster, it could be Sammy. Out of just anyone, I would say either Punk or Bryan would be my guess. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode, what is this, 427 of #AskGSM here today for February 2nd, 2022. It's 2-2-2022, so a lot of twos in today's date. Looking forward to Dynamite tonight to see what's going to happen. Looking forward to watching Groundhog Day later, like I said earlier. And I'm just looking forward to the month of February in general. It's always a fun month, so I'm looking forward to it. Thank you guys, as always, for sending in questions to the show. I appreciate it. Be sure to tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Like I said earlier, guys, 2 quick cheap plugs here. Check out my interview going up very likely on Friday in video form with Impact star Tennille Dashwood. A very fun conversation there. And then very likely going up on Monday here on the channel, also in video form and in article form over on Bleacher Report, my chat with the WWE champion himself, 2-time champ, the almighty Bobby Lashley. So, looking forward to that one. Have a great rest of your week, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.